So while making my Trout Magnet BFS Rod Buyer's Guide video, I stumbled upon this rod on AliExpress, the stunning HISTAR Solomon 2. So basically you saw firsthand the process of how I buy rods from AliExpress. Pretty much I browse until I see a rod I like. I click on it to check out the specs and information on the rod, and if I see enough that makes me think it's worth the price, then I pick the model I want and buy it. So immediately after editing that video, I purchased the Solomon 2, and you can definitely see why. This rod is a stunner. The styling is very JDM and cutting edge. It has styling elements of Shimano with the sculpted monocoque handle, DAIWA with its replica of the air beam reel seat, and overall it reminds me of Major Craft BFS rods of about 10 years ago, where they look much more expensive than they actually are. And can you believe that this rod only costs $60? If you slap a Shimano badge on it and quadruple the cost, nobody would question it. Now the Solomon 2 rod lineup has a total of 3 casting models, and all of them are Bait Finesse spec'd. Now I chose the longest one, which is 6 foot long and 2 pieces, and it's supposed to be a fast action. Now when I buy rods from China, I buy based on looks first, and then I figure out what I'm going to use it for after I get it in hand. Now with the Solomon 2, it feels very light and crispy in hand, but after giving it a good shake, it does flex more than I thought it would, but it's not a noodle. The blank does flex a little bit. So I immediately thought small jerk baits and single hook microplastics for trout and panfish. So after the rod was sitting around for almost a year, I decided to finally kill 2 birds with 1 stone and go catch some bluegill for my mom for Mother's Day and test the rod out at the same time. Sort of like a one-day review. So of course the next thing to do is to choose a reel to pair it with, and the only BFS reels I own that have orange accents is the Flight Feather Kingfisher and the KASTKING Zephyr. Now the Zephyr actually looks really slick mounted on this rod. The orange matches up great and it feels good in hand, but the Zephyr would struggle with the lure that I was going to use to catch bluegill. So instead, I decided to use a reel from HISTAR as well, the Aurora Air. So while the Aurora doesn't look as good on the rod as the Zephyr, it would perform much better in casting the microplastic that I was going to use. So some of the standout features of the rod, of course, starts with the sculpted Shimano Poison Ultima-esque carbon monocoque handle, combined with the copy of DAIWA's air beam reel seat. The stylish lock nut is machined aluminum, and the blank has a high power X type carbon tape wrap, just like a lot of rods have these days. But with the Solomon 2, this X wrapping goes all the way up the blank, all the way up to the tip. With a lot of other rods that have this similar carbon X-wrap tape, that wrap would only go up to the first guide. Now the lure rating for my particular rod is 1 to 8 grams, so I thought it might struggle with the only lure I was going to be using to catch bluegill. That is a 1.5 gram stonefly imitation with a trout slayer jig head. But I was wrong. The Solomon rod really surprised me because it easily loads up and casts that 1.5 grams, and I would venture to say that the trout magnet might be doable with this rod given the reel you use is capable enough. Now when combined with the Aurora Air, I could cast the ultralight stonefly lure not only a good distance, but with pinpoint accuracy. This combo gave me confidence to cast around cover without fear of casting into the cover and getting snagged. So I was targeting the edges of sunken trees and tree branches, as well as the corner of a lot of boats and boat docks. And I never got snagged once or once made a bad cast due to the capability of this combo. I think a lot of the credit does go to the Aurora Air due to its ultralight tiny micro spool. The Zephyr definitely wouldn't have performed as well. And the ultralight lure castability of this combo is definitely top notch. One of the best I've ever used. Now, incidentally, I was using 2-pound trout magnet line, by the way. So after catching a multitude of species, I finished the day with a bass that weighed probably almost 1 pound, and the Solomon rod handled it easily. While the rod flexes and loads up 1.5 grams easily, the blank and tip is still stiff enough to be able to twitch the lure with no problem and give it the action that I want. And of course, like I said before, I suspect this reel would be great for small jerkbaits like the Pointer 48 and the Spearhead Ryukis. I could definitely see myself bringing this rod to Colorado to do some trout fishing. And FYI, it comes with a rod sock too. So needless to say, I'm very pleased with the Solomon 2 rod. It's very much well worth its $60 price tag. The only issue I see is that the orange color accents might not be for everyone, and there won't be too many reels that will match up with it if that's important to you. Now if you do want to get one of these rods, just go to AliExpress and type in HISTAR Solomon 2 in the search bar, and you should be able to find it quite easily. Alright guys, thanks a lot.